Good morning. I always have to tell the apocryphal version of this gospel where when Jesus says the one without sin, throw the first stone, and then the rock comes flying up from down the hill and hits the lady and she dies, and Jesus turns around and looks down the hill and he's like, "Come on, Mom, I'm trying to make a point." Because Mary's without sin. Okay, good. Just making sure we all have that basic tenet down. Both readings today show us the juxtaposition of justice and mercy, that justice without mercy can be cruelty, and that mercy without justice really isn't mercy. In justice, the woman in the gospel deserved to be stoned according to the law, but Jesus in his mercy also calls out that we are all sinners, that we are all in need of God's mercy. Biblical scholars often speculate as to what Jesus was writing in the sand. Some say that perhaps he was writing the sins of the elders that were there present, and as they saw their sin, they slowly walked away. In the first reading here, we have Susanna, and she's caught in this very unfortunate situation. Really, the crime is being committed against her, but they flip it around to try to condemn her to death. And ultimately, justice is served, but justice is served in a just way. The two men who attacked her ultimately are the ones that are put to death. And I think these are very important readings for us as we enter into Passiontide, the 2 weeks before Easter, where we prepare to recognize and walk with Christ in his final days as he enters into Jerusalem, as he prepares for his passion and death, and as we prepare to rejoice in the glory of the resurrection. We recognize that mercy is available to us only because of the passion, death, and resurrection of Christ. We recognize that mercy is available to us because Christ has suffered for us, to give our suffering meaning, so that when we suffer, so that when we endure hardship, so that when we endure ridicule, we're right there with Jesus. We're connected to Jesus. We're suffering with him. But then we look and we recognize that in his mercy, he brings about healing. In his mercy, he brings about forgiveness. In his mercy, he brings about unity. In his mercy, we recognize who he is. In his mercy, we recognize who we are. We are made in his image and likeness. We desire unity with him. We desire healing. We desire restoration. And so these readings for us today are so important as they help us to recognize that Jesus desires forgiveness for us. I'd be remiss if I didn't focus on the last line of the gospel. "No one's condemned you, no one, sir." And Jesus said, "Neither do I condemn you." And so many people stop right there, right? So many people stop right there. Well, don't condemn, don't judge, don't point out wrongs. And then Jesus says, "Go, and from now on, do not sin anymore." Go, and from now on, do not sin anymore. That mercy is an invitation to us to live a new life. That mercy is an invitation to us to allow God to heal us. Go and sin no more. Now, that's impossible, of course, right? We're all going to sin again. We're all going to go out into the world and make mistakes. We're all going to do things that we're not supposed to do. We're all going to say things that we ought not. We're all going to omit things that we ought to do. But God's mercy is eternal. God's mercy is enduring. The sacrament of confession, this opportunity to have our souls resurrected from the dead, to have our souls cleansed and restored and healed. And so we recognize that God desires that for each and every one of us this day. This morning we are privileged to have a celebration of a confirmation. Now, last night we had priest dinner, and Bishop John was here, and one of the priests was saying that he has the privilege of confirming his parents at the Easter Vigil in 2 weeks. He says that his parents are going to be brought into the church and receive confirmation and First Holy Communion. And the bishop, without missing a beat, he said, "You should do it the old way and make sure that you slap them." I'm not going to slap you, Ray, okay? But anyway, confirmation We recognize the reception of the gifts and fruits of the Holy Spirit, which began at baptism, but in a full way are given to us. So at this point, Ray, I'm going to ask you and your sponsor to come forward.